everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I am super excited to share with all of you part 2 of my Sephora and Beautylish haul. So I picked up some last minute items from the Sephora VIB sale, and also I used the gift cards I got from my original Beautylish gift card event haul to buy a few additional items. And so in today's video, I wanted to just run through my haul with you guys and demo some of the new items that I picked up. So if you're interested in checking out what I picked up, then just stick around. So here is the very large bag from Sephora. Let me actually first just show you guys what I got from Beautylish, since this is a much smaller haul. So what I have here in this small bundle are 3 of the newest release from Goss. So if you guys have followed my channel for a while, you know that I love Goss brushes, and I have a lot of his OG brushes, especially his eye brushes, like the crease brushes, are some of my all-time favorite Fude brushes. And so I was really sad when he discontinued most of his brush line, and for a while I was really curious what was happening with that. But recently he did come out with a whole new line with all sorts of new shapes and sizes of brushes. And to be honest, even though I really love Goss's original eye brushes, I decided to focus my initial haul on his face brushes, because the new types of eyeshadow brushes he came out with weren't exactly the types of shapes I tend to use for my eyeshadow looks. But these face brushes looked very much right up my alley, so I wanted to try them out with you guys. Now, I did forget to wash these yesterday, and so today's going to be kind of a very unofficial first impression, because they will sort of bloom after washing, and that does dramatically change the character of the brushes. So I will use them for today's video, but I'll have to film a follow-on if you guys are interested in more of an in-depth review of these brushes. But just as a quick preview, so the brushes I picked up were the F3. This is kind of an all-over powder cheek brush. The F1, this is an angled brush that can also be used for powder, bronzer, blush. I love angled brushes, and so I was really attracted to this unique shape. And then finally we have the F5. So I don't have a brush that looks like this in my collection right now. It's very long and very wispy, so I figure I can maybe use this for under eye powder or for highlight, but I'm very intrigued by this brush's shape. So that wasn't a lot of items, but these brushes are pretty pricey, so I did use up my gift card already. But I am super excited to play around with those brushes, and in general just really excited that Goss is coming out with brushes again. So now let's turn to the Sephora haul. So honestly, I was not planning on buying anything else from Sephora after my initial haul video, but what motivated me was I realized I have a couple birthdays I need to buy presents for coming up, and so I figured the VIB sale was a really good time to buy gifts. And so I'll first show you guys the gift items, and then I'll go into the additional makeup products I picked up for myself just because I had some impulse buys on the last day. So first off, we have this lovely candle set from Voluspa. This is their metallic glow gift set. It comes with 4 different scents. So we have cinnamon woods, forbidden fig, Baltic amber, and Tahitian coconut vanilla. And I was attracted to this because for a gift, I think it's always good to get multiple options, because you never quite know what scent the person will like the best. And also, all of these scents were just very lovely for the fall and holiday season, and so I thought it was just perfect for this time of year. I also think this box and these individual candles are quite luxe, and so that's what attracted me to this set. And for me personally, I don't actually use candles that much, because even though I love them when they're lit, I feel like I haven't found any way to extinguish them that doesn't cause some smoke from being released. But this gift is for someone who does enjoy candles, so I hope they will enjoy this set and find that at least some of these scents are to their taste. Next, we have this skincare duo from Farmacy, and this probably looks familiar to you guys who saw my first haul video. So I actually bought one of these for myself and my husband to use because I really love this line of honey-based products from Farmacy. For me, it's just like a really lovely, luxurious line that has a really cozy honey scent to it. So it's not like overly sweet and cloying, but it does smell very distinctly of honey. And so I'm a huge fan of this, and I figured that for the person I'm buying this for, they are also huge fans of bees and honey, so hopefully they'll enjoy this set as well. So this is an additional set I picked up on top of the one I already bought for myself. And then the final gift is this Tatcha Night Cream. So this is their Indigo Overnight Repair Cream. This is their priciest face cream, and I personally love Tatcha products. If you guys watched my last video, you know I picked up a bunch of Tatcha products for myself and my husband to use. So I thought that Tatcha would be a great brand for a gift because it is just such a luxurious brand that folks typically don't buy for themselves, and this individual does have mature skin. So I thought that having something from the Indigo line would be really great since this is designed to just be super, super nourishing for the skin. And I have tried this cream before and do really enjoy it. I would say for me, I don't really like wearing it during the day. I think, you know, if I have sunscreen and makeup on top of it, it does feel a little heavy, but it is meant to be an overnight cream, and used that way, I've personally really enjoyed this. So those are all the gifts I bought. I also did buy 2 complexion products for myself. So one is this Charlotte Tilbury Color Corrector in the shade Medium. So I was on the fence about this product for a long time because I don't normally use color corrector, and I'm always hesitant to introduce an additional step to my makeup routine because I already have a lot going on in terms of makeup. But this was something I was influenced by Patty Alonso to pick up because she uses this a lot. This is her ride or die color corrector. And recently I have felt like my dark under eyes have gotten more pronounced. And so I figured I should try a color corrector. And given her rave reviews, I thought this would be good, especially since I already really enjoy Charlotte Tilbury products. So this is what the product looks like. It is very small, so I guess you just use a tiny bit, so hopefully this still lasts. And inside you can see that for medium skin tones, it does have a peachy orangey hue to it. I was debating on which shade to get because when I swatched them in stores, the fair light one is like very pinky, and I was worried it was kind of making my skin look a little grayish. Whereas this one does make my skin look orangey, so I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how this fares under concealer. Now the other product I got was truly an impulse buy. So this is the Makeup Forever HD Skin Sculpting Palette. So it's kind of funny, when this first came out, I was really curious who would actually buy this because it has so many different shades in it. So other than makeup artists, it just seemed very inaccessible. But then I heard so many rave reviews on YouTube about this product that I did become very intrigued by it. And finally, I've gone from, you know, who would ever buy this, who's not a makeup artist, to here I am, I have picked it up. So I'm actually really excited to try this out. It's very different from any product in my collection in that it just has all of the shades you need to sculpt, highlight, and conceal your complexion. So I think this will be really fun, especially for travel. I'm not someone who usually mixes my own bespoke makeup products because that's just an additional step, and I don't really have like a makeup palette that I do that sort of mixing on. So I'm really curious to see if I can just use these products kind of directly on the skin, or maybe mix them on my skin so it's a little bit easier to use. But every time I've been to Sephora in-store lately, I've swatched these shades because I've just been so intrigued by this palette, and I have been impressed with just how nicely the formula seems to blend into the skin. And so today I'm super excited to try this on my face. As a side note, isn't this packaging so cute? So you can see all the shades on the outside, and then it opens up like this, and it's just such a nice little compact packaging. So now let's get into today's demo, and let me know, by the way, if you guys would be interested in more dedicated videos on these products. Today, I'm not really going to do a very formal review with swatches and comparisons or anything like that. Instead, I'm going to just try this on my face and give you guys my initial impressions. So bringing you guys closer, let's first go into this little color corrector. I have here my BK Beauty A506 brush. This is my favorite brush for concealer. And I'm just going to sweep this right under my eyes where it's looking pretty dark. So what I did like about this product from all of my swatches in store is that it seems very lightweight. So I was debating between this and also the recent color correctors from Natasha, Denona and Huda Beauty. Those are liquid color correctors. And ultimately, I was more attracted to this one just because I feel like with the liquid ones, you do really need to make sure they fully set down before you apply anything else on top. Whereas this product, because it's a cream, just kind of felt like it immediately settled into the skin. Though we'll see today if that's the case. So here we have it on, and you can definitely see it doesn't look natural on my skin in the sense that it does add some orangey hue, but I do feel like it's done a decent job of canceling out some of the darkness under my eyes. Now with some color correctors, you can just kind of wear it almost as a concealer. I think with this one, I guess actually if I covered this with foundation, it might be okay. It's not as unnatural as I thought it would look. But yeah, I think on most days I probably would still go on top of this with a concealer. Very nice though in terms of initial impression. So now let's get into this palette. So I'm going to use this palette as everything on my face today. So concealer, bronzer / contour, and highlight. One thing I did want to note is I found out in doing research on this palette that Makeup Forever actually has released on their website palettes that are more like all-in-ones, including blush. And so I was debating between whether to pick up this, which doesn't have blush, versus one of those. Ultimately, I decided on this one just because I really liked the cool toned browns in here. I like the versatility of being able to do a bit more of a contour. But if this does seem a little bit too plain to you, there are options that include blush. So let's see, I'm not sure which of these shades will be most flattering on my skin tone. So let's just go ahead and dip into this one to start. So I'm using that same brush and I'm going to just sweep this on top of the under eye area where I put that color corrector. And okay, actually I think that's a pretty good match for my skin tone. Like it really is not standing out. And this is pretty high coverage, so I like that because it means I don't need to dip out for a separate concealer. I think the combo of the Charlotte Tilbury and this has done a pretty good job of concealing my under eyes. I guess this shade is just a tad bit deep and yellowy for my skin tone at the moment, but not too bad. Now, just for funsies, I'm going to switch over to the next shade because I'm just curious how much these differ on the skin. So this one is actually a pretty good shade match as well. And it's doing a pretty good job of covering this blemish too. Honestly, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing that both of these look fine on my skin. That does imply there's maybe less versatility than maybe you would want in this palette, especially if you do have a deeper skin tone. But I'm quite impressed. These shades are blending in very nicely into my skin, even though they do pack a decent amount of pigment to them. Let's see if this will cover up the blemishes around my nose and mouth. I guess I kind of need a separate green color corrector for the redness here, but that's okay. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to switch over to a bigger brush and let's see, sure, why don't we just play around and try this shade as well. Ooh, okay, that one is a little bit deep and orangey on me, so not the best choice, but I'm just going to blend this out and then go back into this shade, which I think has been the most promising on my skin tone so far. Do I need all three of these? Probably not, but it is, I guess, kind of fun to be able to mix and match and just tailor the shades to your preferences. I am kind of curious how long this palette will last because I am dipping in a fair amount, but I never really hit pan on things, so not a huge issue for my makeup habits. And then going back in with that smaller brush, I'm curious to use this lightest shade sort of just on the high points of my face. Okay, that is really light actually. Let's maybe put a little bit in the under eye area as well. I'm not someone who usually does like detailed sculpting on my face, so this idea of really cocktailing different shades on different parts of my face is very new to me. But it is kind of fun. It definitely makes me feel more like an artist. You can just add some subtle light to different parts of your face. Sweep this over my eyes as well. Alrighty, so here we have just kind of a light layer of that all over my face. I'm pretty impressed with the finish of this product. It does just look super natural on the skin. The cream definitely leaves a certain amount of luminosity to the skin, so I feel like I should probably powder this down, though it's not looking greasy or anything, so I think if I wanted to leave it this way, that would also be okay for more of a natural look. So now I'm really curious about this shade over here, which is kind of like the really cool toned contour shade. That's one thing that really attracted me to this palette. So let's see how this looks on the skin. And I'm using my BK Beauty 112 brush just so I can do sort of a targeted contour. And this is actually a lot more subtle than I anticipated, which I guess is good. It's not as gray as I thought it would be on the skin. Blended out, there's almost a little bit of reddishness to it. Just taking a little bit of this also on my nose, because for my nose, I usually prefer more of a cool toned contour instead of a bronzer. And then going back in with my 109 brush, for the forehead area, I want something that's a bit more bronzy. So let's actually first try this shade and just put this around the perimeter. Okay, this is definitely pretty warm, but I think this actually looks nice as a bronzer on my skin tone. My forehead naturally gets a little bit warmer and tanner than the rest of my complexion, so this is just kind of bringing back what is under the foundation. And then I'm kind of curious if I can use this shade because it looks really deep, but I'm going to take a tiny bit of it and just add it to this cheek contour area. This is definitely a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I feel like it applies lightly enough if you use a soft touch. It's not that intimidating. Okay, that definitely works. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a great palette if you have a deeper skin tone because there's really nothing for you to contour with. If you have a skin tone similar to mine, it does feel like I'm able to use all of these shades reasonably well. So I haven't really dipped into this one, but I feel like this is something that's gonna be hard for me to use until the summertime. So now let's look at these highlighting shades. So first, I'm just curious to take some of this and apply it almost like a blush. Put it a little higher than where I applied the bronzers. Okay, it's definitely not really a blush shade. Still super brown and bronzy, but really pretty. I think if you wanted a very natural look where you're not looking like you're wearing blush, but you still have a bit of color and shine on your cheeks, this definitely will give you that. I do like the very subtle luminosity it adds as well. And going back to this brush, let me try the other highlighting shade. So first, this one over here. Okay, pretty subtle. Honestly, I'm not seeing a ton on my skin. I feel like it kind of looks similar to my skin, maybe just a little bit of that kind of wet look. Let's go into this shade instead and see if it adds a bit more brightness. Okay, again, pretty subtle. Let me dig in a bit more. I guess that's good if you want just a very subtle, almost kind of hourglass type of luminosity where it's not going to look really like you have highlight on. Now let's try the lightest one. This one is probably going to be a bit bright or not. I don't know. Maybe this brush is not really picking things up that well. Let me see if I put this on my nose. Okay, I think you can see it on my nose actually. Yeah, okay, this definitely has a little bit more of that kind of highlight quality to it. But overall, these are definitely fairly subtle. On the plus side, that means, you can kind of just brush this all over your face to get a little bit of that glowiness. It's not going to be too overwhelming at all. I will say though, I'm a little sad how my palette now does look a little bit dirty because the pans are not super big, so if you use full-size brushes, they will tend to get outside of the pan a little bit. But looking at my complexion right now, overall, I'm actually quite a fan of how it's looking. This product is just extremely natural on the skin. It really doesn't look like I have like several layers of makeup on. Instead, it just looks like maybe I have some extra skincare or like some bronzing drops or something. So that's really nice. It's a very lovely formulation. So I went off camera to do my eyes and my lips. So here we have the updated look. I went in with my little mini gold palette from Natasha Denona, which is one of my all-time favorite minis from her, and I'm really loving this green look. It's been a while since I've used this palette, and I think it's absolutely stunning. So even though I feel like my complexion actually looks really good and I would probably most days just leave it like this, I do want to try out these brushes from Goss, and so I'm going to go in now with some powder all over the face. So first off, I'm going to go in with this Westman Atelier powder. I did demo this for you guys in my last Sephora haul video because I picked this up in part 1. And if you guys watched that video, you know I was really not impressed with this powder in terms of first impressions. But today I'm going to give it another go. Since then, I have used this one other time, and it fared a bit better that time. It wasn't as cakey and patchy, so let's hope that today it goes well. So first I'm going to try out this F1 brush and see how this works. Interesting. It doesn't look like it's actually picking up a ton of powder, even though I'm definitely getting kick up over here. But let's try. Just sweep some of this around the center of my face. Okay, so it's definitely mattifying things. Hopefully you guys can see a little bit of that difference with this side of my face now looking a little bit more matte than this side. The bristles on this brush are actually quite long, and so it's kind of interesting. It sort of has a bit of a floppy feel on the face. I'm curious also about how this F3 brush will fare, so let's try this on the other side of my face. And again, I don't know if it's just because I haven't washed these, but I feel like it doesn't look like the brush is really picking up that much product, but then I am getting a lot of kick up in the air, so I'm definitely swirling things around quite a lot, but I don't actually know how much powder I'm picking up. But I do like the size of both of these brushes. I think they're really nice for my smaller face shape. Alrighty, so looking close up at my face, I would say I'm really not a fan of how this is looking. I feel like on camera it looks fine. It just looks like I kind of mattified my face. But looking like really close up in this mirror, everything looks dry, and now sort of in some of my problem areas, the foundation looks like it's just kind of clumped up. Yeah, so I don't know. I probably need to just return this Westman Atelier powder. I have really wanted to like this because the compact is so luxurious. It's so heavy in hand, and I don't mind the fact that it's so small because I feel like it does make it just nice for travel and such. But yeah, it's not looking good on top of this product. If you guys watched my first video, you know it did not look good on the Tower 28. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed, but on the plus side, this was a very expensive powder, $75, so at least I can save myself some money. Now I'm just gonna dust a little bit of that powder over where I bronzed up. I don't wanna put too much down because I do like that luminosity from the highlights, and I still want that to shine through. But because that powder did take away some of the color from my face, I'm going to go back in with some bronzer. So I have my Glowish from Huda Beauty. This is shade 5 medium. This is supposed to just be like a finishing powder, but I like using this as bronzer. So I'm going to first use that angled brush and see how this fares as a bronzer brush. And as you can see, that introduced a lot more color. This is such an interesting brush shape because it has that sort of pad to it, like where it's kind of like almost like a cat's paw. But because it is a longer bristled brush, it just has a lot more wispiness than what I'm used to for this kind of angular brush. So I'm still not sure if it's a good thing or bad thing in terms of having that wispiness, but it's definitely different from any of my other brushes. And I think it did a pretty good job of applying that bronzer. Let me actually just kind of go over it a bit with the F3 brush, and I'm really liking this brush so far. I feel like it has enough firmness to have sort of a buffing motion, but it's still fluffy enough that it's really soft on the skin. So for blush, I thought I would just keep it really simple and go in with this Suqqu blush that is very nice, very neutral. And now I'm gonna try out this F5 brush and see how this works. Again, this is a totally different shape than what I've tried in the past, so I'm very curious how this will lay down product. And it laid out quite a bit of pigmentation on this side, so I feel like I actually need to sort of buff things in a little bit on this side. Again, this one is a great buffer brush. On the other side where I just sort of put the residual, I feel like it's looking good. I guess this is really nice for very soft washes of color, but you do have to be a little careful because if you apply too much, then you're going to need another brush to help you buff it out. Let's actually see going back in with that F5 brush and taking a little bit of this blush, how this applies. Whew. Okay, so this one can do more of the buffing itself as well, so that's good. But yeah, quite versatile. This is really nice. So finally, let's go in with some highlights. So I have here my Dior highlighter palette, which I honestly haven't used for a while because I've just not been really into highlighter that much. But I'm curious whether this soft wispy brush can pick up this highlight given how it's baked. So let's try over here first. Okay, so that was pretty minimal pickup, I would say. I mean, to be expected given how soft this is, but I guess if you want a really subtle sheen, this brush and this kind of formula could work. Let me actually try a more powdery formula that'll be easier to pick up. So I have this Pat McGrath Bridgerton palette, and this is a much softer highlight. Ooh, okay, I do like that. That looks nice. So this highlighter is one where you can easily go overboard, but I feel like just given how soft this brush is, it just picks up a really light dusting of the highlighter, which is actually perfect for me currently because I'm just not really in the kind of blinding highlight stage. I've normally now just preferred more of a satin or shimmery blush to provide me the highlight instead of going in with a really blinding separate highlight. But I think this is quite nice. Alrighty, so here we have the final makeup look. So now zooming you guys out, let's go through my overall first impressions about these products. So for the color corrector, I would say this is definitely a product I need to use a lot more of to formulate my opinions, but overall it was a very pleasant first impression. I feel like sheared out on the skin, it actually looks less orangey and unnatural than I thought, but still did a really good job of correcting my under eyes. And I feel like even though I used more of kind of a foundation today instead of concealer on top of this, I don't feel like I have any of my dark under eyes peeking through. So far very positive on this. In terms of the Makeup Forever palette, I am very impressed with this formula. I think that that's really probably the #1 factor with this palette. I honestly hope that someday they come out with just the singles that you can buy and put into this, because there's definitely some shades in here I think I'm not going to get a lot of use from. Especially these two bottom shades over here I think are just a little bit too caramelly for my skin tone. We'll see though in the summertime. It's possible that in the summertime these will be more like my perfect shades, but at least with my current complexion, I can't really use either of these very much. I found these four to all be pretty good for my current complexion. Did I really need all four of them? Really, probably not. I think these three are all kind of similar enough that, especially if you're not going for full coverage, you really are not going to see a huge difference. That said, it was kind of fun to kind of play around with putting them on different parts of my face and just feeling a bit more like a makeup artist. In terms of this side over here, I really like this shade. I was a little bit worried if it would be too gray, but it's definitely not. It's quite flattering actually as a bronzer on my skin tone. And this shade surprisingly also worked quite well as a general bronze, as long as I didn't pick up too much product. In terms of these highlighting shades here, they honestly don't look that different on my skin tone. Like the lightest one really stood out as being very bright, but the other three kind of all looked similar just because they're not very bright highlights. They're definitely more for kind of a natural lit from within look. So I do really like the effect. I think it's very great for just like an everyday basis, and in general this palette I think is quite versatile for that. But there's definitely a lot of extra shades, I would say, if you're just using this for your own complexion and you're not a makeup artist. So I'll have to keep you guys updated, but at least so far in terms of formulation, I really love this palette and I think it'll be quite fun for travel. In terms of the products I picked up in my last Sephora sale, since I have had a while now to try them out, I would say that the Westman Atelier powder unfortunately has been a big fail. I'm definitely gonna have to return this. I mean, I don't have like super high standards for powder, I would say, but I expect at least for it not to make my complexion products look worse. And this definitely makes them look very dry, patchy, and cakey, which is very disappointing given that this is my most expensive powder. So yeah, I can't really justify keeping this. If you guys have used this powder and it's worked for you, please let me know if you have any tips or tricks. But yeah, unfortunately for me, 2 of the 3 times I tried it, it just didn't work out. The third time it was fine. I used this over my Kogan Do foundation and it looked fine, but it didn't look particularly blurring or exceptional in any way. So I think really for me, the only pluses of this product are the packaging and the luxurious feel, but in terms of performance as a powder, it's just not quite there. In terms of the Tower 28 concealer, if you guys watched my previous video, you know I did not like this, especially paired with the Westman Atelier. Since then, I have worn this with other powders and by itself, and I would say that it's okay, but not great. So with the sale, this was only like $18 for me. So, you know, I'm not actually sure if I'm gonna return it because I do always feel bad about returning makeup. I know they have to destroy it, but I can't say that it's a particularly good concealer. I think it's definitely the worst concealer in my collection right now. So I'm not finding myself enjoying going for it. Basically, the issues I have with this concealer are that it always pills up my skincare or sunscreen underneath. I'm not sure if it's just a few of the products, and maybe if I changed up my skincare routine, it would be okay. But the reality is I'm not going to change my skincare routine just to use this concealer. So, you know, that's been quite disappointing. And also I find that it's not the most flattering type of coverage. So when I compare this with my Pat McGrath or Natasha Denona or Clé de Peau or Dior concealers, those all provide a very good amount of coverage even after you sheer it out. With this concealer, I feel like when I apply it, it has a lot of coverage and looks really nice and hydrating. But by the time I've really blended it in so there's no creasing, there's just not enough coverage that's left over for my preferences. Honestly, this is part of why I wanted to buy the color corrector, because I felt like, you know, when I'm using this concealer, my dark circles are still very much peeking through. So even though I like that it feels very serum-y and comfortable and hydrating upon initial application, the hydrating element of it just makes it such that it just keeps pooling in my eyes. I have to keep thinning it out, and then by the time I've thinned it out enough that there's no pooling, there's just not enough coverage left. So on the whole, I would say I'm glad I did this part 2 haul, both so I could get those gifts for folks, but also because it turns out that the part 2 complexion products have been much more successful than the part 1. I'm still on the fence on whether to return this, but I definitely will be returning this guy. But these two are definitely here to stay. Now, in terms of my Beautylish hauls, I am still loving the Sonia G box I showed you guys last time. Nothing has changed there. In terms of these 3 brushes, overall I think my initial impressions have been very positive with them. In fact, I'm really surprised how much I liked this one, because this one I was a bit on the fence about. It's like the least special or unique shape of the 3, but it was the most versatile brush in today's video just because it was so good at buffing in addition to laying down product. For this angled brush, this is the one I had the highest hopes for because I do just love any brush that has that sort of angled effect. It's been kind of surprising to me because it's so different from my existing brush collection with how wispy it is. So I'm still trying to develop my thoughts on that, and I'm also curious how this will compare once it actually blooms and becomes a bit fluffier. But overall, I thought this was a good workhorse brush that worked well for pretty much all of the face products. Finally, for this brush, I would say because it is so light and wispy, it's not going to be able to be super versatile. But that said, I think this is really lovely if you are someone who wants just a touch of highlighter. So if you are kind of tired of the really strong blinding highlights and you have a lot of strong highlighters in your collection and want to wear them in a softer way, then this brush is great for that. So it's not going to be very good at picking up your baked highlights, but for any highlighter that is kind of loosely pressed and picks up really easily, this will give you a lot more control with those formulas. So at least so far, I'm really pleased with all of those Beautylish haul items, and I will probably film a follow-on video just dedicated to those Wayne Goss brushes. Definitely let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in that. So that's it for today's video. I would love to hear what you guys thought about these products. If you guys have any experiences with these products, please let me know how they've worked for you. Also, I'd love to hear if you picked up anything in the recent sales, and if so, what your thoughts were. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!